Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a really tragic event that happened near Wollongong in New South Wales, a light plane crash. Our sources give us quite a detailed picture, focusing not just on, the awful outcome, but also some, frankly, almost unbelievable circumstances around the immediate response. So our mission today is to unpack the facts of this specific incident, understand a bit about how first responses work with civilian aircraft crashes, and sort of clarify the roles of the different investigation teams involved.
Right. And if you just look at the basic facts, it's pretty stark. It happened Saturday morning about 10 a.m. down at Shellharbour Airport, just south of Wollongong. A private light plane. Reports say it was heading to Ballarat. And the key thing is, it crashed shortly after takeoff. A violent crash, and it caught fire immediately. 3 adults on board died there at the scene.
Okay, let's delve into that immediate aftermath. Chief Inspector Aaron Wunderlich from Lake Illawarra Police gave some initial details about the victims. What strikes me from the sources is how carefully they talked about identification.
Yeah, and that's crucial. At the time the reports came out, the 3 people described as adults, similar age group, they hadn't been formally identified. Police are very methodical about this. It's not just about getting names out. It's confirming identity beyond doubt. For the families, for the investigation, it takes time, especially, well, considering how severe the scene was. So yeah, no specifics on ages or where they were from could be released right away.
And the scene itself.
Yeah.
The police used some pretty strong language. Inspector Wunderlich called it quite a gruesome scene.
Hmm.
Beyond just the shock value, what does that kind of description, the physical wreckage, tell investigators?
Well, if you put that into the context of air crash investigation, that description is significant. Inspector Andrew Barber from Fire and Rescue NSW, he noted the plane was broken into multiple pieces. That's not just color commentary. It tells investigators, especially the ATSB, they're dealing with, high energy, serious forces involved. The way the airframe fragmented suggests a very rapid, high-velocity impact. That's an early clue about the crash dynamics, even before they get to flight recorders or maintenance logs.
Right. And that detail, the plane breaking apart, leads directly to the second factor here,
Yeah.
the fire. It sounds like it was immediate and just overwhelming.
Absolutely. Aircraft fuel, it behaves differently. It's not like a house fire. Inspector Barber was very clear in the reports. Because of the quick combustion of the fuel exposure, the way aviation fuel burns, he said the occupants had no chance of being saved. And think about what that implies. In some crashes, there's a small window, seconds maybe, to get out. Here, the fire took hold so fast after the impact, that window just didn't exist. Even for rescuers right there, the whole terrible event was over in moments.
Okay, so shifting from the physics of the crash to the actual setting. This is where it gets, well, quite unusual. This didn't happen out in the middle of nowhere. There were people around.
Yeah, that's the really jarring coincidence here. Shellharbour Airport was actually hosting an open day with the local aviation museum. Now, the plane that crashed wasn't part of that event, but it meant there was a crowd, members of the public nearby.
And the sources even give numbers. The chief inspector mentioned probably about 10 to 15 people from that crowd might have actually seen the crash happen. I mean, imagine that. You're there for a fun day out looking at planes, and suddenly you witness something like this.
The impact on those people, psychologically, you can only imagine. But the situation gets even more layered and, honestly, almost strangely fortunate from a response angle.
You mean the fact that emergency crews were already there, but not because of the open day?
Exactly. This is the really standout detail from the sources. A local RFS unit, that's the Rural Fire Service, they were already at the airport. They were doing a training exercise nearby when the plane went down. It's an incredible case of trained professionals being right on the spot completely by chance.
Now, the RFS, they specialize in exactly these kinds of complex, often rural fire situations. So having them literally seconds away,
Yeah.
that's not the typical response timeline.
Not at all. And they immediately went to help. Sources confirm some of the RFS crew actually saw the crash too. Now, as we discussed, the outcome for those inside was sadly unavoidable because of the fire speed. But just having trained firefighters, people who know how to tackle fuel fires and manage a scene right there, it's a huge asset operationally. Even if it couldn't change the tragic outcome, it likely helped contain the scene quickly. It really highlights the value of that constant training and readiness.
So the RFS and local fire and rescue units got the scene under control. What happens next? The focus shifts to the official investigation, right? What do the sources tell us about that handover?
This is where you see the 2 mainstreams of investigation kick in. You've got the NSW police and you've got the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, the ATSB. They work concurrently but have different jobs.
Okay, let's clarify those roles for people listening because it can get confusing.
Mhm.
What's the police's main job after the immediate danger is over?
The NSW police essentially manage the scene itself. Three main things. The formal identification of the victims, that's their legal responsibility. Then securing the site, making sure evidence isn't disturbed, and documenting everything related to the scene logistics. If there were any immediate suspicion of foul play, that would be them too. But in a crash like this, it quickly becomes about process and support.
And the ATSB, that's the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, they're the ones figuring out why it happened.
Exactly right. The ATSB was notified, and they take the lead on the technical side. Their goal isn't about blame, it's about safety. They're the experts who look at the wreckage patterns, flight path data if available, the plane's maintenance history, weather conditions, everything. They want to find the cause. Was it mechanical? Pilot error, something external, so they can make recommendations to prevent it happening again. That's why the wreckage stays put initially. They need to do that detailed analysis on site.
It sounds like a really meticulous, slow process, but obviously vital. Now, going back to the people involved, the witnesses, the RFS crew who were first there, the sources mentioned psychological support. That seems critical given how traumatic it was.
Absolutely. And it raises the point about standard procedures for support. NSW police confirmed they'd offer counseling, and importantly, that's for both the first responders, including those RFS members, and the civilian witnesses.
Why is that so important, especially for the RFS? They're professionals trained for tough situations.
Trauma affects everyone differently. For the public witnesses, seeing something that violent and sudden is obviously deeply shocking. It can cause acute stress reactions. For the RFS crews, yes, they're trained, but being right there when something catastrophic happens, especially when you realize instantly there's nothing you can do to save lives, that can cause significant distress, moral injury, vicarious trauma. Looking into this, it's clear the need for support doesn't end when the flames are out. It really begins then, for everyone affected.
Yeah, that makes sense. And connecting it back to the wider community, the sources noted the local reaction. Caitlin McInerney, the local MP, called the news devastating on social media. It shows how an incident like this hits the whole area.
It does. It brings the technical side of things back to the human cost. The community is processing the shock while the authorities are carefully working through identification, investigation, and crucially, that support aspect we just talked about.
So wrapping this up for you, the listener, what are the key things to take away? We've seen the awful reality. A high-impact crash, a devastating fire, 3 lives lost. We've also looked at the unique context happening during an airport open day and that almost unbelievable coincidence of the RFS being right there already doing training.
And we've outlined those parallel investigation tracks, the police handling the immediate scene, the victims, the documentation, and the ATSB digging into the technical why for future safety. Understanding this gives you a framework for how these major transport incidents are managed.
Definitely. But let's just circle back to that RFS detail for a final thought. The training exercise happening right next to a real disaster. Even though, in this case, the fire meant the outcome couldn't be changed for the occupants, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often does that kind of sheer luck, having highly trained specialists nearby, just because they're practicing, actually make a huge difference in other crises? It kind of highlights this invisible benefit of constant training and readiness. Sometimes the payoff isn't obvious, like saving a life directly, but maybe it's in faster scene control or preventing things from getting worse.
It's a powerful reminder of the value of preparedness, absolutely. Being ready for anything, anywhere.